So, Josh, did you enjoy Charlie Kirk's The Mummy?
No.
This is the Philosophy of Horror podcast. My name is D.H. Hyde. I am an artist. And who are you, Joshua?
I am Joshua Howard, hypnotist extraordinaire, perpetualpresence.com.
And today we are going to talk about a riveting movie which starts out as William F. Buckley's wet dream and ends as his worst nightmare. Of course, I'm talking about the 1996 blockbuster hit, Uncle Sam. Josh, what can I say about this movie that has not been immortalized in the National Prayer Breakfast? So, spoiler alert, I'm going to tell you what this movie is about. Because we watched it, so you don't have to. Although, I mean, if you like those like so bad it's good movies, like this one is chef's kiss.
Gosh. Yeah.
Okay, so the movie revolves around Jody, who is a boy. I think we're supposed to think he's like in middle school-ish, maybe like 11 or 12. And so Jody's uncle, Sam Harper, is like his idol. Like he worships Sam. Sam is a soldier who is killed in combat in Kuwait, and his body is sent back to his hometown and received by Jody's family, specifically him and his single mom mother, who is also like dating this lawyer guy. And then you kind of start to get the feeling that maybe people don't like his Uncle Sam, and then Jody spends like the first act of the movie defending this guy and saying he's a hero and don't talk bad about him, and there's real like love it or leave it vibes from Jody.
My Uncle Sam said you guys were cowards. When I'm grown up, I'm going in the army. Just like Sam did. And I'll do whatever the president says to do. Because he knows better.
And then on July 4th, which is like 2 days after the dude's body gets like shipped back, he somehow becomes reanimated and becomes like this ghost zombie type guy. And then he starts killing people in the town. Um, Most notably, like people who are like flag burning or talking down on America or doing drugs or other types of like doing immoral activity, and he starts killing them. Eventually, Jody realizes through this like random kid who's introduced in like Act 3 for no reason, like other than I don't know why the fuck was he not introduced until Act 3. Anyway, he tips him off that it's Uncle Sam.
Did he tell you who he is?
He didn't need to. He's your uncle, Sam Harper.
And then Jody is like, "Oh, that's bullshit. It can't be him, dude. He's a hero." Blah 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 blah. And then Jody's mom and his Uncle Sam's widow are like, "No, actually, Uncle Sam is a horrible abuser, and he terrified people in this town, and we're low key like kind of glad that he's dead."
Jody, your Uncle Sam wanted everybody to be afraid of him, especially me. He hurt me so badly that I was afraid that one day he might kill me.
You're making that up.
Why would I do that? Why would I want you to hate him?
I don't know.
She's telling the truth, Jody. I know it's an awful thing to say, but I was so happy the day that he got married and moved out of the house, because then he'd have another victim instead of me. Louise, I'm sorry. I could have warned Louise. I could have told her about what he'd been doing to me since I was 6 years old. But I didn't. Things I couldn't even tell Mom and Dad. Things I knew were wrong.
And then Jody's like, "Oh shit, I didn't realize he was a piece of shit." And so then he's like, "Well, I guess we got to stop him if he's killing folks." And then him and this veteran who was played by Isaac Hayes track down Uncle Sam. They kill him. And then Jody, who was like obsessed with like joining the army and being patriotic, like disavows his patriotism and then like burns all of his toy soldiers and like army comics as his mother like watches from the porch thinking like, he's gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay, kid. And then the movie's over. And during the credits, we also get this very well thought out poem about being a soldier and how you have to make morally compromising choices.
Not one drop of blood is worth the oil of Kuwait. I might kill a man I don't know enough to hate. Hell, I don't even know if I'm gonna win. But I still believe that freedom's not a sin.
Would you say that's basically the movie?
Yeah, though there's a couple things that I think you missed that are kind of important.
Okay.
One, just because of stuff I want to bring up later, the when the aunt and the mother talk about the problems with Uncle Sam, the mother mentions that Uncle Sam did things to her that made her hate men or something like that. It's very it's very ambiguous, but it makes it seem like Uncle Sam molested her.
Right.
That was the impression I got. It could be that he just beat her relentlessly.
Yeah, it could be physical. You're never told if it's
never
physical or sexual abuse, but it's one or both.
It's deeply hinted. It's like the language they use, like made me afraid of. I forget she says something like made her afraid of men, or she didn't want to interact with men for some reason or something. It was very like gendered. And so
she makes that comment that's like the real war that he waged was against like me and your aunt, you know.
He had a power over me. I just couldn't fight it.
That's enough. You said enough.
I think that's what came between me and your father. Don't you see, honey? I just couldn't trust men.
Honey, do you understand what she's trying to tell you?
Well, he fought a war in our house all our lives, and we were the losers.
The other thing is that Uncle Sam comes back to life before his body is taken back. In one of the scenes that's actually sort of kind of like entertaining in a way, because they talk about him being, they talk about him being killed like in friendly fire, and then as a zombie he comes back to life, and then you find out later on that was like 3 years, like his corpse has been sitting there for like 3 years and somehow still has enough meat on it to do this. Let's like leave that part out. But he grabs the gun from one of the guys and shoots him. Is like, oh, you got killed by friendly fire too. And he kills like the sergeant guy who was like looking for him.
Don't be afraid. It's only friendly fire.
So there's that. And then the movie cuts like immediately from that to Jody like waking up in the middle of the night because the picture falls down and the glass cracks.
Oh yeah.
And Jody cuts his foot on the glass and the blood gets on the picture. So in my mind, I couldn't tell because it's horribly written. It's like very poorly written, but it seemed like there was this element in there where like Jody's blood touching the photo caused reanimation. I'm not sure if that's exactly what happened or not, but I was really confused by that.
I couldn't figure out why the fuck he became a zombie. And I thought it was like, his body gets there on July 2nd, and then July 3rd, Jody's running around being like, yeah, love it or leave it. If you don't like America, you can get out, and then July 4th happens, and then all of a sudden it's like he hits midnight on July 4th, and homie's body like becomes reanimated. So I thought it was maybe like
it was the spirit of flag burning like got him.
Yeah, right. Or like something about he's like, oh, it's Independence Day. It's time for me to make my comeback, right?
Right. It's time to create more independence. Yeah. But I think that there are illusions that he's alive in the box the whole time because it cuts to clips of like him in the box for just like a second. Yeah. So I think like what they're trying to say is that like he was alive the whole time he was in the box. He was just like pretending to not be a reanimated zombie, because I guess if you were a zombie who'd been killed again, you'd be a corpse again. I don't know. Let's too much metaphysics on that, but there was something about like he was alive in the first scene. Jody's blood did something, and it seemed to me like those incidents had to either be together, like either it was foreshadowing that Uncle Sam was coming back and like he was going to like cut people and create like the blood, or the blood brought him back. And I really couldn't tell which one it was. Either one of the two of those. Like the symbolism is too like on the nose for it to be more complicated than that. But I couldn't tell.
Yeah, they don't establish that, and they also do. I mean, then it becomes like just a kind of quintessential slasher movie until like halfway through Act 3. So I would say the The one interesting topic that I pulled out of this movie, I mean, maybe it's the only relevant topic that we could talk about, is it's later revealed by Isaac Hayes' character that Uncle Sam joined the army specifically because he just wanted to kill people and get away with it. And so there's like this theme throughout the movie that there are people who join the military for quote unquote noble causes. And then there are people who join the military because they are psychopaths and like want to kill people and know they can get away with it, if they're a soldier in a war. So like when they have that wake thing at the beginning of the movie and Isaac Hayes' character shows up and he sits down and has this kind of heart to heart with Jody and he's like, yeah, like they send like young men over to these foreign countries and like tell them to kill people with impunity and then they come back and they say, okay, cool, like you were bloodthirsty then, but now you just have to not be bloodthirsty anymore. And he's like, that's like bullshit. And like who's able to do that? Like everyone's fucked up from it. But then he's like, yeah, but your uncle was just kind of always bloodthirsty. And that's like literally why he did it. So what do you think about that topic? I mean, I don't know if they do a good job of I don't think they do a good job of anything in this movie, but I did think that was an interesting topic because we did at one point play around with the idea of like, is war a monster? And this is clearly like almost like flipping that on its head, where it's like, yeah, war causes horrific things to happen, and people are like terrorized and horrified by the experience of war. But on the same token, like there are people who are kind of already monsters and so they thrive in that horrific situation.
So yeah, I think there's a lot to say with that topic, and I think that's the major theme. At least it seemed like that was the major theme the writers were trying to put across, is like there are these kids who they're, for whatever reason, they want to join the military, particularly like in the 80s with the GI Joe kind of propaganda that's encouraging people to be Green Berets and this kind of stuff. There's a lot of this push for kids to join the military, and I don't think they realize what they're getting into. And I think that that's kind of like what one of the themes was, because it's like Jody didn't realize what he was getting into. Like he didn't realize that it wasn't just about glory. There's all this like murder and death and all these kinds of things. And it's like it seemed to me like they were trying to get at kind of the same thing that like I think it's Agamemnon in Dante's Inferno mentions, like when they find him in like that circle of hell, that he would have rather just been like a regular person than have like sought all this glory. Oh no, it's Achilles. I think it's Achilles.
It's one of the epic heroes for Greek.
Yeah, it's an epic hero. And he says, I would rather have just like lived my life and been peaceful than have sought all this glory, because like seeking this glory caused me to have an experience that basically put him in like one of the circles of hell.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think they were trying to get at a message like that, like this experience is kind of saving Jody from that, because it's showing him the truth of being involved in this stuff. Because like Isaac Hayes was saying, either you get traumatized or you're already a psychopath.
Right.
And if you're a psychopath, you're going to enjoy it. But most people just end up getting traumatized, and most people end up dead. I think that's kind of like, it's kind of like that was like the bigger theme. Like the other ones were kind of bouncing around in it, but the bigger theme is like, if you play stupid games like war, like if you play war games, you're going to die. I think really that's what you could call like the theme of the movie, is like war games kill you. And like the idea of like living for patriotism is a monster. Right. So I think that's why Uncle Sam, like the kind of big picture concept works. But like once you get past like explaining the movie in like 4 lines, it all falls apart. But like on a big picture, the Uncle Sam theme works because he's a monster who's coming around killing people for like living their lives and living free, even though the Uncle Sam idea is supposed to be creating freedom. Right. So if like Uncle Sam's creating freedom, but then also killing people for expressing it, where's really the line? And I think that's kind of like the only real like actual viable theme that they have going on in there, because The rest of the themes are super muddled, but we'll get into that later, I think.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing about this movie too is that it was done in 1996. And one of the things that I don't know if it intentionally does this, but there was this kind of ideological vacuum at the end of communism in the late 80s and early 90s. So the Berlin Wall comes down, and there's this almost like gap between then and 9/11 where um, it's unclear why one should be patriotic. Because during the Cold War, it was because there's this higher cause of fighting the Soviet Union and fighting international communism, and America is the beacon of freedom. And then after 9/11, it becomes like, well, America is free and we're fighting terrorists who like don't want us to be free because they're religious fundamentalists, etc. But in the 90s, none of that is happening. And so one of the things that happens in Uncle Sam is you've got this guy who's going around killing people essentially for not being like patriotic or whatever, and there's no like clear. No, there's no like explanation of like why one should be patriotic, and it's almost like, especially at the like festival stuff where everyone's just kind of like an automaton, like going along with it because like this is what one does, and the like ridiculous band that's dressed up by like the founding fathers, and then there's like that outrageous scene where the corrupt congressman guy is like strapped to that like awning gate thing, and he gets blasted with fireworks by Uncle Sam. But the whole crowd can like see him like there, and they're like, no, we're gonna have a fireworks display. And then there's like a spotlight on this dude like chained to the fucking fence thing, and they're about to blast him with fireworks. And this scene lasts like 3 minutes, and like everyone is watching it like,
Yeah, they're
yay,
always like,
fireworks in the mail. I guess someone's tied up to the thing. Let's see what happens next.
no, they don't even give a fuck that he's tied up to the thing. There's like no
No,
mention of it.
they don't
But you
even
keep
notice
seeing
it.
it.
Like,
Yeah, you keep seeing it in a way where you're like, everybody there would notice. Yeah, I was bothered by that too.
yeah,
It's like,
I'm like,
everybody
they
there would
see
see
the
this.
Yeah, and and I think it's unintentional, but they unintentionally have this imagery of like, yeah, everyone's patriotic for no reason. Like there's no reason for them to even be at this festival or whatever other than it's like, well, it's what one does, right? But there's no it's also there's like this nihilistic element too that Uncle Sam in his like murders brings up, like he kills the like flag burning kids. But it's like why were they burning a flag, right? There's like no reason for them to do that. They're like it's like they're at this cemetery and they're drinking, like teens do, and this other guy's like, "Oh, hey, I have a flag. Let's burn it. Yeah, fucking rock and roll," right? And there's like
Yeah, it's
and you're
totally
like, "What?
pointless.
Why did that happen?" There's no and then Uncle Sam shows up and he's like, "Oh, love it or leave it," and fucking like murders all of them.
Well,
And you're like, "What?"
except the
Oh,
one kid who
except for
lives
yeah,
to
but
like he does the like he sings like the terrible national anthem the
yeah,
next
he
day.
does the Roseanne Barr national anthem cover basically at the fucking festival.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and again, no rhyme or reason for why he does that either. Like it's completely uncalled for. It doesn't make any sense. It's just jarring, and it's like it's amusing. Like it's one of the funnier elements of the movie, but it's like it's completely like unorganic. Like it doesn't belong. It seems like it's all completely performative, right? It's just completely for the
Exactly.
performance. There's no like
Yeah.
organic story reason for it.
No, it's absurd. And like the reason that this starts out as William F. Buckley's wet dream is because like you're in this town and everyone is just not patriotic for no reason except some made up reason that like might exist in William F. Buckley's head of like, see, look, people burn flags all the time and they fuck up the national anthem all the time and like they should get murdered, and then they do, which is why it's his wet dream.
Yeah, yeah, man.
But without understanding like the context of any of that, it's like completely fucking shallow and vapid. So the other thing about this movie, and something that I actually liked about it, is that it follows a lot of the like normal tropes of a slasher movie in that people who are doing immoral things get killed. There is not a final girl, but Uncle Sam goes around like killing people who are somehow immoral, right? Like he gets the Uncle Sam suit because there's that fucking dude on stilts that's like fucking that voyeur guy who's like trying to look at that woman in the bathroom, and then Uncle Sam is like, "Did you enjoy the view?" and then fucking like stabs him and steals his clothes and shit. Then the girl that's like smoking pot like gets killed. And then the dude that's just being a dick gets killed. But here's what I liked about it is that unlike the early 80s slasher movies, which are reinforcing conservative values in the way that they decide who gets killed, Uncle Sam is doing the same thing, but it's not like trying to hide that. It's not ambiguous. It's like very in your face of like, yeah, man, people who don't have like conservative values are gonna fucking die. And there's all this stuff where Jody's like calling people out, like when he calls his teacher a coward, and then his teacher later gets killed. And then he calls his mom's boyfriend like a cheat. He's like, "Oh, you're all you do is make money cheating people," right? So I just wondered if like that was something that you noticed or if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I did notice that because in the other episode we talked about slasher films, we talked about the rich history of conservatism inside of slasher mores, and
Hmm.
particularly the way that it related to the nuclear family. I think
Right.
that this one has a lot of interesting angles on this, and the ones I found the most interesting were around sexual mores because
Yeah.
you notice like the guy on the stilts gets killed, right? But
Hmm.
so does the sergeant guy that brings his body back that's trying to sleep with either the mom or the sister.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. He does too.
I mean, that's like a real quick death and you just see his head, but like those two
Yeah.
people are punished for their sexual mores. Most of the
Right.
rest of them are like political in nature. But the thing I found really particularly interesting about the sexual mores thing is that Uncle Sam is a total hypocrite if he actually molested his sister, which,
Right.
as I said earlier, I think he did. And so the
Yeah.
thing I found the most interesting about it is that like the value structure is all muddled because like Uncle Sam is killing people for reasons that he should also die,
Yeah.
even though he's already dead, right?
Yeah.
But it's like the ones about people burning the flag or like things like that, or like smoking pot, which you can relate to like being a hippie, and that
Hmm.
stuff made more sense to me. But the ones about the two about the sexual mores thing, like really confused me because it seemed like we were harkening back to the traditional slasher film stuff. But on the same token, the hypocrisy of it made it kind of weird for me because it's like none of the rest of the killers have like they're not rapists,
Right.
but like it seemed to me that he was either a rapist or a pedophile or both. I mean, technically, you would be both, right?
Right.
So he seemed like both, and yet he's killing these people for those sexual crimes. And so it seemed to me that this was one of the many places that the theme of this movie was just like all over the place and kind of just like it opened like these boxes and then kind of smashed them back in. It's almost like they took like a bunch of tropes and just put them together, which I think is part of the
Yeah.
like comedy element is like it's sort of like bad on purpose so that it can make you laugh. But it yeah, I felt like that was really problematic
Well,
personally.
the other thing you could say about that, I think, is that it is attempting to call out the hypocrisy in conservative America, in that a lot of times you have people who are hella moralizing while also being incredibly sexually immoral by their own standards. So you could think like Ted Haggard, for example. You could think,
Like the Duker brothers.
the Duggar brothers, fucking that dude from Oklahoma that got busted trying to like pick up teenage girls or whatever. I think he was like a state senator or something like that. Uh, who else? Lindsey Graham, who's rumored
Matt
to be
Gates.
gay. Matt Gates. The Larry, I think his name was Larry Craig. He got arrested in the 2000s for attempting to solicit sex to like an undercover prostitute in a bathroom. Um, yeah, and the thing about those people in particular is that they have made a career off of like shaming people for their sexual behavior when they themselves were like a lot of times engaged, if the same, if not like more deviant sexual behavior. Um, so there's that. The other thing too, along those lines, and I wrote this down in my notes, but but only like half seriously, is that so Jody gets grounded for like calling people out, like he makes fun of his, like he calls out his mom's boyfriend. He's like, "You're a fucking slimy lawyer, a cheater, whatever." And his mom is like, "You're grounded, buddy." And so then he's like at home and the parade's happening. And like what I noticed is that Jody is going around doing all this rah rah, like love it or leave it. If you avoided the draft, you're a coward, like bullshit. And then at the same time, like there's all these kids like volunteering for the parade and he like didn't do it, right? Like he's not in the scouts, he's not in the float, he doesn't like participate in any of the school stuff. And I was like, oh, what a perfect metaphor for a lot of these fucking MAGA people, right? Who are all like, yeah, everybody hates America, but then they do like no civic participation at all. They just like chill at home and like watch Fox News and get pissed off. And I was like, oh yeah, I mean that tracks.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Another thing I would bring up with this is that Jody specifically plays with GI Joes.
Hmm.
He very, very specifically plays with GI Joes, and so I think they're directly trying to make a commentary about the show GI Joe.
Okay. Okay.
Because it's like all of the action figures that he has and all of the toys that they have are from GI Joe. Like I was obsessed with GI Joe when I was a kid,
I
so
had
like
all
I
those toys
know.
as a kid, dude. I had the same ones. I was like, what? The dude with the weird vest thing, you know what I mean? Like the
Mhm.
fluffy and his like chest was exposed. I think I
Yeah,
had that action. I had the same one. I was like, oh shit.
yeah, man, and he was attacking Destro, the dude with like the metal head.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, oh yeah, he
Um,
had Destro as like his mom's boyfriend and he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna blow him up with my takes."
yeah, yeah, and so I think they really very much are trying to make these kinds of commentaries. I don't know how specific any of these specific commentaries we're thinking about are like the ones they were trying to make.
Hmm.
But they're trying to definitely like throw these themes out there. So I would say GI Joe goes along with that quite a lot too, because there's this element with like GI Joe. It's like you watch it and you're like, "Ooh, I'm an American hero," and like I'm gonna be like this crazy hero. Meanwhile, like the guys that are in GI Joe are like like the Green Berets and Special Forces are like the places that you were like the most likely to fall out of. Very, very
Right.
few people even get the opportunity to even try to be in those, and most of the people who
Yeah.
try fail. So I think
Okay.
they take like 1 in like 10 out of the people
Okay.
that are able to get through the tests and stuff to even get there, which is before you have to, it's like you got to be able to pass the stuff to even be considered. Then like once you're considered, then you have to pass like the preliminary. And then once you get in the preliminary, then you got to like get through all the stages. And then once you get to that, then it's like, are you going to
Oh
stay? Are you
yeah.
going to go? And I think
Yeah.
I think it's something like from the beginning of selection all the way through. It's like something like 1 in 100.
Yeah, I have an uncle who was in Army Special Forces. And yeah, it's really rigorous. He didn't start out there. It's like you have to get tapped in. Like other like leadership has to like see that you are exceptional and might be able to get through, and then they can like start you on the process. But it's
Yeah.
not. It's elite, and if they don't see certain qualities in you, like you're never gonna get even a chance, right? So,
Yeah, and what I was trying to get at with that, I guess I should be more clear with what I'm trying to say. You can make the choice to like become heroic, but then you're like on the path of being heroic, right? You're
right.
like doing the
Yeah.
thing. And so a lot of people really like to jump from like where they're at to where they want to be. And I think GI Joe was like one of these kinds of things. It's like
Hmm.
the fattest little boy in like 1991 could watch
Yeah.
GI Joe and be like, "Yes, I'm going to be a GI Joe." And it's like
Right.
probably not,
Exactly.
probably not, bro. Like because it's like they're looking for the cream of the crop of the cream of the crop of the cream of the crop. They're not looking for just like anybody. And I think there's a lot of elements in American culture that are very performative like that. You can just like, you like watch the thing and you feel like it's going on. Kind of like you were saying with like Fox News. I think on like both sides of the political spectrum, there's a lot of this. Like, I think, conservatives would say the same thing about MSNBC, right? And so it's like you're watching the thing and you're just like, oh, I'm so like into like this political discourse, but really you're just into like watching these people who like spin these cycles of infuriation for you.
And all
spin this like emotional thing.
Yeah, and you're like spinning your wheels, not doing anything. Oh no, dude, the progressive activist community is full of people like this. It's very similar. Can we also acknowledge the scene where Jody's mom's boyfriend's body is found because he's been shot, and then Jody just like magically appears in the frame to diss him like one last time? You know what I'm talking about? Dude, I almost fell out of my fucking chair. Like, so when the cops are like questioning his mom, and she's like, I don't know why anyone would want to do this. And all of a sudden, Jody is just there in the frame, and he's like, I know why, because he's a slime bag lawyer. Fuck that guy. He just like appears out of nowhere. And then his mom is like, hey, you're not even supposed to be here. You're grounded, mister. And he's like, oh, fuck you. I'm here anyway.
All that loud music. I didn't hear any gunshot.
Why would anybody try to hurt Ralph? He was so harmless.
I know why. He was a crook.
Jody, just be quiet. You're not even supposed to be here. God, I'm sorry.
Yeah, like we were saying at the beginning, there really are moments of this movie that make it amazing. If you like trash, like if you like terrible fucking movies, this one is the cream of the crop. It's like almost as terrible as Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, but it has surprisingly more of a plot and better cinematography. It's way more entertaining.
I would much rather watch this than Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, but like there were several scenes where I was just like, what the hell is it? Like, it was just executed so poorly. There were weird cuts in this movie too, between shots. We talked about it, the people like not giving a fuck that dude is getting fireworks shot at him. The fucking sack race, which like went through the forest, is like the most like challenging sack race course of all time. There was like farm equipment that kid like had to jump over like a tractor like in the sack.
Well, because he fell down. He was trying to attack people and then he fell down the hill.
Well, but before that, like leading up to that, there was like a tractor. This kid like jumped over it in the sack.
Okay.
And then Jody is somehow like winning this sack race when there's like adults, like full on like grown men like racing him, and somehow like they're not faster than this like 11-year-old kid.
Another thing I found really interesting is how intensely caricaturized the liberal characters were. Like all the characters that were supposed to be like liberal or like flag burners or whatever, not only were they like absurd, they were absurd to like a stupid level. Like
there was
like
no
the mom's
reason
boyfriend
for it either.
Yeah, like the mom's boyfriend was like so egregious with the way he was like talking about stuff. Like he was like clearly like a tax cheat attorney. Like it's like so blatantly. There was no gray area. It was just like, no, this guy is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And every single character that was portrayed as like liberal was kind of like that, with the exception of the teacher. The teacher was like a classic bleeding heart liberal, but ultimately they made it like they caricaturized him as a giant pussy. Like that's exactly. Like he was just like a giant like whiny man who like didn't have any like traditional masculine strength, so he couldn't come out and fight in war, so he just was like a whiny pussy, and that was like what they made him. They characterized him that way too, and I found that really interesting, the way that they just like overly bent the liberal characters. There was no gray area, there was no space for us to like sympathize with them. It was like you were clearly supposed to hate them, almost more than Uncle Sam. Like I feel like the lawyer character, the lawyer boyfriend, you were supposed to hate him the most. Like he was like the most villainous person in the movie. As weird as that is.
Well, no, exactly. And the thing is like that's why I was like, oh man, this movie is it's like John Birch Society propaganda all the way up to Act 3 when the burned kid shows up and is somehow like telepathically connected to Uncle Sam. And you're like, wait, well, first of all, he shows up and Jody's like, yeah, we should kick it sometime. I don't give a fuck that you're disabled. And his parents are like, no, you're the reason he's disabled. And you're like, okay, that was never established. And also, like, why is this kid showing up here at the end?
Well, and also too, Jody was like, I wasn't even there that day. I think like if we were to give the writer the benefit of the doubt, which I don't think we should, but if we did, we would say that like that character was a reminder of the problems of A, patriotism, and B, warfare. Because if you think about fireworks, they're patriotic for the US, but they're patriotic because they're to remind us of like the rockets' red glare and like, you know, shooting bombs and cannons and whatever, right? It's like it's in memorial of us winning the War of Independence.
Yeah.
And so the kid getting hurt by fireworks around the 4th of July is like he is like the embodiment of the problems and death that come from overzealous patriotism.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it also kind of exposes the lack of self-awareness of people who are performatively patriotic, right? Because you've got the kid's parents who are like, nah, man, it's people like you that are the reason he's like that. And he's like, I wasn't even there, you know, and it's a lot of times especially you see that with people who defend police in the wake of brutality, right? It's state sanctioned violence that has been perpetuated against an individual or a community of people. And then you've got people out there that are like, well, you should defend the police, and I don't know any cops who were like that, and blah. And it's like the South Park episode where Cartman does the poem that reads the poem to Token, I'm not the bullet, I'm not the gun. You remember that? Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't the one, but still, you blame me. It's people who get all defensive about that kind of stuff, where it's like, no, dude, we're not calling you a racist. Like, specifically, we're saying that, like, this, like, system is racist and causes harm to people, and then you, like, uncritically support it.
Right. Yeah, and I think not only that, but he's also the embodiment of this like innocence, like the innocence of childhood, and how all of those things can directly harm children. Like I think that's kind of what they're trying to say. But as you're mentioning too, it's like they should have brought this character in a lot earlier. Like if they brought that character in earlier, I think the movie would have sucked more, unfortunately. But it wouldn't have this like Dossie Machina effect, because it's like without that kid in the wheelchair, you can't get to the ending because you can't figure out who the guy in the Uncle Sam suit is, and you can't figure out that it's Uncle Sam. And so it's like he's necessary to the end of the plot, but it's like I don't know. It's like this thing they should have introduced it earlier, and they could have like had people talk about it like in whispers so that you would like know about it. So then your brain would put the pieces together. Like if it was a better written movie,
you could have just had him be like Jody's homeboy or whatever, and he's just like his homie at the school, and you know, Joey, because he's all about being like self-righteous and patriotic and all this, he could be like, well, I'm still his friend even though everyone makes fun of him because he's disabled, blah 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 blah, and he's wheeling him around the school telling everybody that, you know, they're a bunch of pussies for not being in the army. And then, you know, then when Uncle Sam is in the coffin, you could have something where he suddenly telepathically communicates with the kid, and then he gets resurrected, and the kid's like, "Oh, Jody, something's happened to me. I don't know what it is." You know, like that would have been way better than what actually happened.
It would have shifted the tone of the movie in a way that might have made it more crappy and cliche, though. That's the one thing.
It's cliche, man. Like it's.
I know, but imagine if you added like +10 crappy and cliche to it, you might have ruined it. Like it's just crappy and cliche enough to be like classic, But if you made it more crappy and cliche, it might just be actual crap.
Oh man.
So that's
Can
because
we sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's just it was the one thing I was thinking about is like on a story structure level, like the classic answer, like the answer AI would give you is like, yo, introduce him earlier. But I kept thinking
Right.
about all the ways you could introduce him earlier, and you would end up shifting the theme of the movie because so much of like what the author's trying to get across in the movie is like this element of this kid really likes patriotism and we're going to sort of like
Yeah.
lift up patriotism
Yeah.
and then like have this emotional roller coaster where you lose it. Like if we consider this a masterpiece, we could say like the author was trying to like make us connect with somebody who is very patriotic for his own emotional reasons, then lifting that up and then watching us crescendo down and losing that patriotism, right? And in that movement, if you introduce that kid earlier, you would already be making the questions about patriotism that you're not making until the end of the second act or the beginning of the third act in the way that it's structured now, right? Because until you really get to the scene where Uncle Sam is like killing a lot of people at that festival and Jody starts to be distressed by it, you're really not into the questioning this idea of patriotism because you're like the whole movie is like, yo, patriotism is good.
Yeah.
There's this underlying element of like maybe it's not, maybe there's something wrong with Uncle Sam, but it's like it's a questioning and the kid is like full tilt like whatever.
Well, and also like, okay, two things. One, how easily he just flips when his mom's like, "Oh, Uncle Sam abused me and like your aunt," and he's like, "Oh, well, fuck. Why did you say that?" Well, that changes everything, right? Like he like for a split second he's like, "No, you're lying," and they're like, "No, he really did it, Jody," and he's like, well, I mean, I guess he did. He, was in the army."
Yeah, no, I mean, again, it's like this is why we couldn't actually consider this a masterpiece because it's like there's no like character movement. There's sort of just like character. It's all like slopped. Like somebody just takes like some grits from like a pan and like it on like a lunch tray. There's no like movement or transition for anything. It's just there it is.
No,
There it
yeah.
is.
Yeah, the entire movie, it told us everything and showed us literally nothing.
Yeah, you don't.
Um,
That's the other thing that's crazy is the only actual death scene that you even kind of see is the guy on the fireworks stand.
oh
Like
yeah,
everything
yeah.
else, it's like it's all hidden and it's obscured.
Well,
And
except for the dude getting decapitated with like one
okay,
hack from that fucking knife. I was like, oh yeah, sure. That was definitely sharp enough to just like sever his spine with one hack. Yeah, that was
yeah,
cheesy as hell. Um, but the other thing I wanted to say is that what are we supposed to think about the last scene where Jody's like burning the GI Joes and then his mom is like looking at him menacingly from the porch? Did you catch that? Like she's like looking, she's like, yes, now I'm gonna indoctrinate him into radical feminism. Jody, we're gonna be late for that Indigo Girls concert. I
all right.
mean, and then and then he like turns around, and then they do the horror movie like music that's like beep 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 beep, and he's like, "Ah," and then it's just the end of it, and then his face like shatters on the frame, and then it's over, and so you're just like, I don't know how to interpret that. I'm like,
Well,
what are we supposed to think about that entire thing?
because the truth is that the movie's actually Rush Limbaugh's nightmare, and he's like, what if these like anyway, I don't want to say it like I listened to too much Rush Limbaugh when I was really little, so I don't want to actually go there. But he the choice of being raised around conservatism, right?
Right. Yeah.
So like Rush Limbaugh would say, okay, so there's this kid Jody who's very patriotic, and he's like going to grow up to be a strong, powerful American male. But then these feminazis are there, and they're going to like corrupt him, and they do that by corrupting his belief in his uncle, the military, and then Uncle Sam, then all of it, and now he's a communist feminist. And now he's a communist feminist.
Yeah.
That's it. He's just like, boom. Now I'm a commie. Now I'm a feminist. And Rush Limbaugh goes, ah.
Yeah, exactly. What it really is it's a biographical narrative of the early life of Nick Fuentes. Um, He's off on the right path, but then his only male influence is killed. And then his single mother and his radical feminist aunt are like, yeah, fuck him. And in fact, fuck all men. And then Jody is traumatized and, grows up to be a radical conservative. You know who Jody reminds me of in this movie is
Who's that?
the fucking granddad in that Boondocks episode where Thugnificent moves into the neighborhood and he just like randomly pops up to like talk shit about him. Like because like throughout the movie, it's like some shit is happening, and then all of a sudden Jody's like in the frame, and he's like, "Yeah, love it or leave it. My uncle's a fucking hero, man."
Is that the episode where the Thugnificent makes that like fuck granddad song?
Yes, and like throughout the episode, like Granddad just randomly pops in and says stuff like, "This is some bullshit. Y'all need to listen to some Nat King Cole, some real music." Or he's like, there's a part in that episode where they're like trying to document Thugnificent, and all of a sudden Granddad like pops out from behind a tree, and he's like, "Oh, punk ass Nificent over there."
Podcast Magnificent. Man, I forgot how funny the Boondocks is. I should rewatch that show.
Yeah. Okay, so we should probably talk about Carroll and his idea of the philosophy of horror. And I know you had some notes on this movie in relation to Carroll. So what do you think?
Yeah, and just in case this is somebody's first time checking us out, go back and look at previous episodes. At the beginning of our show, we talk about a guy named Noel Carroll and his philosophy of horror. And he has a couple of very simple ideas, like a horror film is about a monster who is threatening a group of people that we can interact with through one main character. And the monster has certain criteria, and we want to look at that.
Sure.
So I don't want to delve into that too much because, a lot of the people that are watching this will have seen those episodes. But if you haven't, go back and check those out. So I think one of the places that this movie has the most problems with the Carroll model is that because Jody is so obsessed with his Uncle Sam, he doesn't see his Uncle Sam as being monstrous until we get to like the middle of the third act, when the mom and the aunt character tell him about how horrible Uncle Sam was. And then he changes his mind and decides that like, oh, Uncle Sam actually was terrible. And until then, we're not really afraid of Uncle Sam, mostly because Jody, the main character, is also not afraid of Uncle Sam.
Right.
So I had to grab this little monster because he was attacking stuff. So yeah, to continue on with what I was saying, one of the major problems with the film is that we don't have fear of Uncle Sam, right? Like, I think you could agree with me on that. Like, for the most part, we're not afraid of Uncle Sam. Even at the end of the movie, it's not really fear of Uncle Sam. It's kind of like he has to go-ness, right? Like, we recognize that he's bad. He's bad news, and we want to get rid of him. And so because of that, then we can sympathize with Jody trying to kill him, but we don't feel any of the typical emotions that we would relate to art horror, right? Like the emotions that Carroll talks about.
Yeah.
And even like on an audience perspective, even going into the quality of stuff that Carroll kind of disavows, we're not feeling the same things. And I think the reason that we're not feeling those things is because Jody isn't feeling those things, right? So Jody just is not afraid of Uncle Sam at all. Just like I'm not afraid of this kitten. Yeah. And the major reason that we're not afraid of Uncle Sam is because Jody doesn't have the want to not be touched by him. Like, it's almost like Jody wants to be touched by him so bad, he's like trying to get in the coffin.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And that's one of Carroll's like very clear elements of a monster, is not wanting to be touched by them. Jody doesn't mind being touched by him. And Jody also isn't in physical danger because Uncle Sam isn't going to kill Jody. Right. Like, Jody's like his biggest fan and his like, little supporter. And so, so Jody doesn't feel threatened by, or the sense of not wanting to be touched by, or the sense that Uncle Sam is impure. And the only thing that he gets throughout the movie is the impurity.
Yeah. Right. And not even until the end, when his mom comes out and is like, yeah, dude, he's a horrible abuser. Like, that's why we talk down on him all the time, because He abused me and your aunt.
Yep. And he's a vicious psychopath who just went to war to kill people. And like
Right. Yeah,
once
exactly.
once
But they kind of allude to that in the beginning with Isaac Hayes saying like, I mean, he was like, dude, I went hunting with your uncle and he was really into killing animals. And I was like, damn, that's fucked up. And then he joined the army. So it's like they try to allude to it, but it's so poorly written that it doesn't really like come across the way it should.
yeah, and even so, I think you'd still have this problem because like I grew up in a situation like this. Right? Okay, you're gonna attack my neck now. So I grew up in a situation like that, right? Like my dad was a social pariah, and most of my family did not like him, and for very good reasons, right? But he was my dad,
Yeah.
and so I lived through the exact emotional set that a person like Jody would be living through, right? Like the adults around me talk a lot of crap about somebody
Mhm.
who I have intense feelings of love for, and I, on a very deep biological and emotional level, recognize I am part of, right? And
Right.
so, like, a lot of what they're saying at me too. And so, there's a certain element of like, fuck you, combined
Mhm.
with the element of like what they're saying, right? And so, I think there's a tremendous in a real life situation like the one that Jody's in, there would be a tremendous amount of emotional stuff that in a poorly written movie like this just isn't there, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that for the audience is left to interpret that, and I think they're going to get lost kind of in a similar position to like I did as a child, which is like, okay, well, these people have a certain opinion of this person, but it's not my opinion of this person, and I'm okay to have a different opinion. They're wrong, right? And that's what Jody's feeling the whole movie. And if that's the case, like the audience, if we're connected with Jody, is going to be following that because that's like it's a place I think Carol is pretty correct. Is that in a well-written movie or well-written narrative, the audience is really following the main character's emotional journey.
Slasher movie, part of the reason it's scary is it's because like, oh, this dude is killing people and he could also kill you too. Because while there's this underlying theme of subversive people get killed and the most like pure person is the last girl, um, it's not so like in your face. With Uncle Sam, you're watching it and you're like, well, I'm not a corrupt politician. I don't go around like randomly burning flags. I don't like make a mockery of the national anthem in public, and I'm not a hippie, so I don't think Uncle Sam would fuck with me. I don't think he would kill me. I'm probably safe.
Right,
You know
right.
what I
And I
mean?
think
It was like too like in your face of like, yeah, all these unpatriotic people are getting killed by this fucking psycho Uncle Sam dude.
right. And I think the reason for that is because in a slasher film, there's this kind of element of like sinners die and we're all sinners
Hmm.
here. Whereas in
Right.
this movie, it was like sinners die and those people over there are bad sinners.
Yeah, yeah, it's almost like, well, he only kills a certain type, if you know what I mean, and not there's not like the moralistic, yeah, like Christian element of like, well, we're all fallen, right? Because it's
Right,
political. It's like, no, 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 no. It's like draft dodgers and hippies, like that's who's getting killed.
right. And the main characters in the movie are not in those subcategories of people, right? So
And
they're
they're not even
they're the
threatened by
other.
him. Like
Mhm.
the two women, right? Like there's no time in that movie except at the very, very end that you think Uncle Sam might be threatening them. And even then, he like shows up at the aunt's house and uh it's so ambiguous as to whether or not she was actually in danger at the end
Right.
because she's like afraid when she kind of realizes that Uncle Sam is a zombie and all this and he is her abuser and she's scared, but it doesn't follow the slasher uh pacing because in the slasher movie this dude is like stalking people for like an extended period of time and he doesn't like specifically stalk the two women in the film like ever. He just kind of shows up and was like, "Oh, this guy's a lib. I'm gonna kill him." Right?
Right. Well, and
That's
and
kind
that's
of how
another
it goes down.
and that's another thing too. Like if this had been a well-structured horror film, they could have explored the idea of having Uncle Sam come back and do the patriotic killings and stalk the ants, and
Exactly.
made that tension the reason that Jody becomes not patriotic, and they could have just skipped the blind kid altogether.
Right.
Um,
Right. It would have been a lot more effective if he comes back for the purposes of stalking his sister and wife. And then all these like hippies and unpatriotic people keep getting in his way. So like he has to kill them to get to them. Like that would make it more of like a quintessential slasher movie. And it would make way more sense if that's what was happening. But that's not what's happening.
right, and I think that would, that plays into Carroll's model. Like one of the reasons
Hmm.
I thought this movie was interesting when I was watching it is just because all the elements of where it breaks Carroll's model are parts of the elements that make it a bad film and also make it not horror. Like I think you would be hard pressed to say that this isn't like a horror adjacent film, but it's almost more like an action movie or like some kind
Yeah.
of like emotional drama, because like you're not connected with Jody in any type of fear. And I think Carroll would have to say, like, under his model, this is not really a horror film. Like there's clearly a monster, but all of the audience identification stuff is just screwed up.
Mm.
And that's a major thing I found, at least in our work through Carroll, is that the audience identification with the main character is really a quintessential element of the way that Carroll has genre study set up, and particularly the way that the horror film is set up. And I don't think he's necessarily wrong about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we have this if we have the story where the main character is not afraid of somebody, then it's going to be very hard for us to be afraid of him unless we fit super hard into the other model. Like if they did a better job at not caricaturizing the liberals and made them kind of more like relatable, we could have got an emotional connection to them and then had fear through them. But without that emotional connection of being somebody who's afraid of the monster, it's not going to be a movie that scares you.
Right.
Like a lot of the child's, I'm wearing a Chucky shirt, but a lot of the stuff around Child's Play has this problem because Chucky will build a world, like the Chucky writers will build a world where Chucky is the most interesting character in the movie.
Hmm.
And you're like so much more into Chucky than you are into the people.
Right.
I think Bride of Chucky, for instance, has this problem. Like Chucky is way more interesting than all the characters in that movie. And some of the characters in that movie, you're like cheering their death.
Right. Yeah.
And whenever you have that, it pulls away from this element to be like really deeply afraid.
Yeah, well, right, because you could juxtapose that with Scream, where the killer is definitely not the most interesting character in the movie. And you have this emotional connection to Sydney throughout like the whole narrative.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and that's something that's interesting about slasher movies in general too, is that like they managed to create a world where most of the characters are really flat,
mhm.
except for the ones that are really, really important. So like the characters that would be in the like main four, like the main character, the romantic lead, and the like best friend character, all of
Mhm.
those are going to be people that you're going to get emotionally connected to. Like in this movie particularly, I didn't feel emotionally connected to anybody, but I think the writers wanted you to be emotionally connected to Jody. I think
Yeah, but like Jody sucks. I mean, he's such a
he
little
does.
shit. I mean, that's the thing is like when all the scenes where he just like randomly pops in to like diss people in like the most like childish ways. I mean, it doesn't help, and it's like it's hard for me to criticize him and the like burn victim kid for being bad actors because they are kids. I'm like, well, they're kids, and so I'm gonna say like it's not their fault that their acting was bad. It's the director and the writer and the supporting actors, like but they're not like they're not likable characters. They're just
No, and it's 100% the writer's fault. It's
yeah.
like all the writer's fault, because the writer creates a situation where we're supposed to feel emotionally connected to Jody and go on this like emotional roller coaster with him. But Jody's emotional roller coaster is stupid.
Yeah.
And not only is it stupid, it's like I was saying earlier, it's like grits on a lunch tray, like
Yeah,
it just kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, and we don't see it. We don't. No one else is prominent enough in the movie for us to care about them. Like the mom is, she's only there for like 35% of the scenes. The same with the aunt, and then Isaac Hayes' character, like you can kind of emotionally connect with him, but again, he's not there long enough.
No,
Like
and
the
his
only
only
character who's in most of the scenes are Uncle Sam and Jody, and both of them are kind of like, eh.
yeah, and I mean even Uncle Sam, who could be a deep, rich character, like you just don't give a fuck about him. Like
No.
I ended the movie just kind of feeling ambiguous towards all of them because it's like you're saying they're all there for this character reason or for a story based reason. Like the mom and the aunt are literally only there to help you understand that Uncle Sam is a bad person. You can tell
Right.
that neither of them like him, and there's
Yeah.
something about him that they don't like, and you can kind of put the pieces together and imagine what it is,
But they
but
also
it's hard to
fucked that
tell.
up by having the aunt like dating the sheriff guy, like right off the bat. And so
Mhm.
you don't know if it's like, well, she doesn't like him because he's a bad person, or she doesn't like him because she's like fucking the sheriff guy and like wants to like justify that. Like they
Yeah,
don't
and
do
that
a good job of like distinguishing that.
no, and they really pace it and emotionally set it up like she's a cheater.
Right, exactly. And she's like not. Because when you like when I had to sit back and think about like, okay, so what's going on? It's because he was reported missing in action 3 years prior, but they did a horrible job of explaining that. So she's like assumed he's dead and is trying to move on with her life. And then he, the military shows up and is like, yeah, he's dead for real, for real. And she's like, oh my God, now I finally know. But I had to like kind of like, wait a second, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah,
Um,
you have to mentally put the pieces together and like rework
yeah,
it because they have it framed like not only is she a cheater and a bad person and immoral, but she's a tease. They frame it like
yeah,
she's a cheater and a tease because she's like
right.
openly cheating on her husband and like this guy can see it, right? Like the
Hmm.
sergeant or whatever that's waiting for her can see it. And he
Yeah,
notices it and he mentions it and he thinks she's a slut, which makes
yeah.
you kind of feel like you think that she's very like promiscuous, right? And so those pieces together really mess up the whole thing because you think of her in a bad way. Like she's set up to appear like a very bad kind of person, like a femme fatale kind of person who's like
Right.
setting up
Yeah,
the uncle.
yeah,
And
right.
you
But
have to put
she's
the pieces
not.
together mentally. You're like, it's been like 3 years. She still doesn't feel comfortable having sex with this guy. It seems like she's
Yeah.
like trying to move on, but she like can't really do
But
it. And she has all this relationship trauma. And it's like that's a lot of stuff that if they built the emotion around that, you could have had this fear because if they'd done literally anything to make the mom and the aunt character more important to the narrative, they could have emotionally pulled you into this place where you had, as the audience member, an underlying fear of Uncle Sam because you had their fear. And then you
yeah,
started to get their fear for Jody, right? Because if you started to have their
exactly.
fear for Jody, then the movie would have had that element of fear involved in it. But again, I think this is like pure Carroll because Carroll would say this too. It's like this movie fails as a horror movie because there's no person who's really scared of Uncle Sam. Like the only people that are scared of him are like the 10 seconds before they die, because literally nobody else has any idea who the fuck he is. Like
And
anybody he
the
kills has
victims
no
don't
idea who
even
he
know.
is. That's what I'm
The
saying. Yeah,
victims
none
don't
of
know.
no.
Like the congressman he just like shows up and he's like, oh, I don't even want to be in this hick town. He's Dante from Clerks. I'm not even supposed to be here today. And then he gets murdered by like this random fucking zombie that just happens to be in the town.
Yeah, and so there's no anticipation on the element of any of the characters who die. Like they don't know they're going to die until like right before they die, which is
Yeah.
something that's kind of uncommon in horror films and horror narratives in general because like the author wants to like stoke and build that emotion for the
Yes.
audience watching it in the same way that's building and stoking for the character that's happening to. And I think that like that's one of the things that's come across in so many of the narratives that we talked about. If that's not happening, it's like not a horror film, right? Like this is one of the things that made us distinguish comic book movies and like superhero movies from horror films is that the hero in those movies feels prepared to do it. They want to do it. and they feel like this sense of like action and like need to like save, and like they're putting themselves in that element, which pulls away the horror, because something about the horror is like you're just like thrown into it and you're stuck. You know, it's like Saw, like you don't wake up and like you don't decide you're going to be a superhero and then wake up in like Jigsaw's puzzle, right? You just wake up in Jigsaw's puzzle and you go, what the fuck is this?
Yeah,
You know, and
exactly. And like they could have easily solved this by in the beginning, like having a scene or something where this Uncle Sam dude like fucking slaps the blonde woman or whatever in the beginning, and then you see it, and then and then he gets killed in the war or whatever, and so you set the stage, and then his body comes back, and then they it's like with a few lines of dialogue, like, oh, I thought you were rid of that abuser, and it turns out that he's dead, and now we have to have his body in here, and it's re-traumatizing us, blah, 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 blah. And now when he comes back to life, now you're scared because you identify with him emotionally, and then you're like, oh no, their abuser really, really is back for real, and now it's scary.
Yeah, and they could have
They
done
didn't
this
do
with
any of that.
they could have done this with dream scenes, right? Like the mother
Hmm.
and the aunt could have had dream scenes about abuse from the past. Like
Right.
you could have opened it with like the scene of Uncle Sam killing the people in Friendly Fire, had the
Yep.
like little bits of the opening credits, and then as the opening credits is going, mix into like a dream scene where like this little girl is getting like attacked, and it's like the mom, and she wakes up and she's like horrified, and she's like, oh my god, Sam. And
Yeah.
then like the pieces build, and it's like that kind of
Right.
stuff could have like put it together. I mean, there's thousands of ways they could have done it better, but
Sure.
it's like that's the element that's missing. It's just like we're not connected to the fear of Sam.
Right.
There's just no reason to be afraid of Sam.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that we've done a pretty good deep dive on Uncle Sam. So, anything you want to say in closing? I mean, I want to say like this movie wants to say something. It does it very poorly. It is not well executed, both from an ideological perspective and from just an artistic perspective in relation to Carroll and the philosophy of horror. Is there anything you want to just add to that at the end?
I mean, all I would say about this movie is that it's a colossal failure on almost every level that's possible in cinema. It has really, really good costume design. Like costume design is great.
Mhm.
The sets are great. Cinematography and lighting, excellent. The rest of the
Mhm.
movie, pure trash. Like
Yeah.
writing
Did you?
horrible, acting horrible, dialogue horrible, direction horrible, editing pretty bad. I mean, I guess the one thing I would say is the sound. Like it's the sound is really well edited, but like the cuts in the movie, like you were saying earlier, are very jarring. It's kind of all over the place. They could have reorganized it in a better way. This is a movie that, like, at least for me, if I was looking at it in an edit, I would be like, this movie kind of sucks. Like maybe we could reorganize this, because they could have put it in a different order and made it like more interesting emotionally, because it's just like so much of it was just like it was all like very heavy handed. um
Did you notice in the credits that the projectionist's name is Guy Man Dude?
no.
I saw that as the credits were rolling, and I was like, man, that guy clearly did not want to be associated with this movie.
I forget, there's an industry standard name that you put in there when you don't want to be associated with the movie. I forget what it is,
Okay.
but yeah, maybe he did. It's hard to say, like, because again, it was supposed to be a comedy. Like there are elements of it that are kind of funny, and so maybe it was built in a way to be funny.
The thing is it fails as a comedy. Um, it the comedic elements are more like Tommy Wiseau than like intentional comedy.
Yeah.
It's not executed well because like the thing with the comedy is like it's all about timing, and the timing is like not funny.
Yeah, no,
I mean,
that's
it's
and that
it's it's funny in a so bad it's good funny way, but not in a way that it wasn't like it doesn't it doesn't look like it is intentionally supposed to be funny, even though it is.
yeah, man. I think this movie has a similar problem to like Evil Dead. Like it seemed
Yeah.
like it was written and shot in a way where it was supposed to be serious, and then in the edit, I think they realized it was goofy.
Right.
And then they made it a comedy. But it's hard to say because like the same people that brought us Maniac Cop, which is another movie that fails, like a movie series that kind of fails in a similar way. But I think Maniac Cop fails less hard than this movie because there's like less going on in that one. It's kind of just like,
sure,
this Maniac Cop is killing people. And I think the high concept is better. Like, like I would say Maniac Cop is probably a better movie, just because it's better written. Well, but it fails in a lot of the same ways.
In a lot of ways, too, this movie is kind of like, well, what if Maniac Cop was actually a zombie soldier?
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of like that, too.
Yeah, yeah. And then instead of having like these elements of like family social and like police force stuff, it has all these elements of like patriotism and extra levels and maybe that extra level of convolution is what makes it problematic. But yeah, I think they tried, but they failed really hard with this one. And again, it is a super entertaining movie if you like really bad fucking movies. But if you're trying to watch like an actually scary movie, this one gets a 0. So for like being a good horror film, I'd give it a 0. For meeting Carroll's criteria, I'd give it like a 4 out of 10. And for being just entertaining because you're like, I don't know, stoned and trying to have a good afternoon, 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I would say that entertainment value, sure, it's definitely entertaining. Everything else, 0 negative stars. I would give this negative stars if I could. Like that's my Google review. But it was entertaining. And like just before we close, can we see that clip one more time of Jody just jumping out to diss his mom's like dead boyfriend one last time because that was just fucking
Why would
gold.
anybody try to hurt Ralph? He was so harmless.
I know why. He was a crook.
Jody, just be quiet. You're not even supposed to be here. God, I'm sorry.
This has been the Philosophy of Horror podcast. Like and subscribe. It really helps out in the algorithm and lets us know that people enjoy what we're doing, or are at least, nice enough to give us an extra click. And check out all of our things linked in the description below. Josh has a coaching program for those who want to be hypnotized in the name of life coaching. And, I'm in a band and my book is not out yet, but hopefully it will be in the future. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, as always, stay spooky.